that in mind, then you will then start seeing concepts that are now taking more shape, like pre-packs. And I'm usually very excited when I talk about pre-packs, which is some form of arrangement where you would have agreed to sell the company, put it in a nice portfolio to sell the company before insolvency. Then you appoint an IP that's an insolvency practitioner and put the company into insolvency and sell the business almost immediately, right? We don't have that going on in Nigeria, and I will talk about that when we look at challenges. But that is something that a number of jurisdictions, especially in England, are actually adopting as some of the recent developments as driving what we see in terms of market trends. Some of the concepts that you also see would be issues relating to new money, post-commencement finance, debtor in possession finance, which allows a company that's in insolvency to be able to get financing that it needs in order to be able to continue its business. Because the idea now is, unlike especially what you used to find in Nigeria, which was liquidator-driven, once there is insolvency, it triggers liquidation. The emphasis now is on rescue, because the reality is that rescuing a company and rehabilitating it, especially if it goes into insolvency, would be much more beneficial to the stakeholders, to the employees, to the suppliers, to even the creditors themselves, right? So things like the concept of new money, which you find perhaps under DIPS, that's would allow companies continue trading, and when you typically want to structure that sort of thing, the creditor who is bringing in financing will come in either as super senior creditors, but at least will have first line charge, if you like to put it that way, over the entire structure. Another point which is acquiring some level of global trend and accelerating is cross-class crackdown, right? You have something like that in Nigeria too, which is where you're able to more or less ram through a restructuring plan, even when you have dissenting creditors. The idea being that once it is determined that that plan is fair, and usually that determination is made by the court, then you will be able to ram it down, so to speak. Typically, you would need the consent of the creditors in order to be able to, if you've done administration, you need the consent of the creditors in order to be able to pass through a restructuring plan. And sometimes, if you've been in situations where you deal with perhaps vulture funds, who would want to, or hold out creditors, who would not want any restructuring plan to go on, but would simply want to put the company into liquidation and then strip it of its assets, then you may want to use things like cross-class crackdown. Those tools are available in order to be able to go past your restructuring plan. I think the last one I want to mention, because of time, would be, and that is one that is very dear to me, the concept of administration. That has now taken full effect in Nigeria. In Ghana, for instance, with their new Insolvency Act, that has also taken effect there. I would encourage us as practitioners to look into that, especially when you are dealing with cross-border issues. The reason is that, especially for cross-border insolvencies, you can actually commence it by way of motion ex parte. You wouldn't be able to do that. Ecobank and Hollywood has told us that you won't be able to do that with plain liquidation, but at least by law, you will be able to do that in administration. And what that does is to help rescue the company, right, as opposed to just putting it into straight liquidation. Obviously, we still have, and I'm mindful that we have a creditor in the room, we still have problems where creditors would not want to go ahead with rescuing a company. They just want to pull out of the entire transaction, right? It's still a big problem, especially when you deal with Nigerian creditors. But I think that with increased awareness, we are seeing positive reactions from judges in terms of administration. At least I know I've been involved in a number of them. We think that with increased awareness, especially amongst creditors, we should be able to have such rescue-driven mechanisms, which is what we're seeing globally, cascade down to Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Can we give a round of applause to the panel? Wonderful insights. Just to say, as we go towards Q&A, that the jurisprudence is still growing in Nigeria. All the issues, the global trend that Mr. Omike pointed out are actually coming up in court. Let's take post-commencement financing, for instance. I'm involved with Mr. Imo in one matter where that is an issue, whether the subsequent creditor who provided financing should have some priority over the old creditors. So those issues are boiling up within the system. The provisions of KAMA and the required majority, you will still have challenge with the provisions of ISA that still says to buy out a minority, you need 90% approval. So there are still areas we need to touch up, but I think what the summary is that there's a lot of scope in Nigeria for innovation. And it's up to us to challenge the ideas, bring solutions. Let your ideas be towards bringing solutions for your client, whether it's a creditor or a debtor. You know, so that's why this conference is so important, where we can share knowledge, there to meet experts, and then when you then have a specific problem, remember to consult the experts that you have met. So we'll take questions. You can raise up your hand, and then some other ways for us to take the questions. I wasn't talking of the Slido question, the second one, not yet. I was talking of if anybody has a question on the floor. We still have a pool question, which will come at the end, the second one. But don't answer it yet. Let's take questions from the floor. Can you raise up your hand? Yes? Oh, okay. Doc. Please, microphone.
A word of appreciation to the panelists and the chairman. My question is this. This going across the border by the Nigerian companies, will the issue of network associations, which some solve the problem of following them so that they will not need to appoint another lawyer or another accounting firm in those other countries? Thank you.
Other questions? Sorry.
Okay, I want to thank the panelists for the discussions on the various topics. My name is Prosper Ambaka. I have two questions. One is for the learned silk, Babatunde Ogala. Okay. The question is, I know you spoke on the tortious liabilities in insolvencies. I want to ask, are there some specific liabilities that that could be associated with insolvency practitioners, that's specifically for the practitioner? Are there some, because I know what you spoke on is for, I think, the creditors that they should be aware of, that the insolvency practitioner should be aware of when he's doing, but are there any associated that could be attributed? Maybe you did some wrongful procedures. Are there some that the insolvency practitioner should be aware of so that it will not affect him later? Then the second question is for Mr. Amala. Thank you very much for your presentation. So it's the question is pertaining to cross-border insolvency, and I want to speak specifically on the UNICITRAL model law on insolvency. I know Nigeria has not adopted that model law. So how does, like, what's the progress that is made? And considering the fact that we have a lot of Nigerian companies doing business outside, extending their branches outside, acquiring businesses outside, what impact does the fact that we are yet to adopt that model law have in insolvency practice in Nigeria? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Matthias Oguta. Just my question is close to the question that was asked by the first person. Just with the existence of BRIPAN and INSO, is there an existing network system under the court administration in such a way that if an order, like under administration per se, if an administrator was able to obtain an order over a global company, then under the cross-border system, it will allow the administrator to be able to trace the asset of the company in another jurisdiction without having to toll the system of registering the order in those other countries before he can be able to trace the asset of those companies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, panelists. My question is on tax. And of course, in most insolvencies, as practitioners, you want to relegate the tax obligation to the background. And particularly when it is cross-border, you are hopeful that you'll be able to complete your assignments before any liability is raised by the relevant authority. Regardless of the nature of the insolvency arrangement, should you take it as an obligation knowing that you are assuming the responsibility for the tax liability as a receiver manager, a trustee, a monitor, an administrator, or whatever name you call it? Is this something that you must take as a major responsibility, or you want to follow the creditors who will probably want to insolvency, and probably if the tax authority does not come on time, then you can close your books and run away? Thank you very much.
Thank you. My own question, it's on how best, first let me just comment, Chair and the panelists. We are very, very enriched. How best can manage judicial and regulatory corporations in cross-border insolvency, particularly, taking note of the limitations in our laws. Somebody mentioned about the model law on cross-border insolvency and the fact that most times when you are dealing with assets beyond our jurisdiction, you are confronted with issues that involve the capacity of the professional, the limitations on the laws, and how best you can achieve cooperation for better results for the stakeholders, including the creditors, and also for other interests in the insolvency process. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we can take this. I think we can take these questions, and then if there is any need, we can do a second round. Okay. Let's take this question from my chairman.
And my chairman, thank you for the permission. My chairman, my question is actually for you. When you talked about FRS and tax, coming in to take over an insolvent company, it sounded exciting to me, and I was really thinking of how to go to FRS and start positioning myself. However, wouldn't that be survive? I mean, because so they come in and the company is not able to pay those debts, they end up winding it up, and then the company dies with attendant loss of jobs and all that. What do you think about that? Wouldn't that be counterproductive? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we just give it to the panelists to answer the questions one by one, and then if we finish, we can come back. I see more hands coming up. We start with Learning Senior Advocate Odala.
Thank you. I think if I got the question directed at me correctly, is if the tortious liabilities could also be incurred by an insolvency practitioner. Correct? I would say directly yes. When you are appointed a rescue manager, liquidator, or in any capacity as an insolvency practitioner, automatically of a director of the company. And if in the process you pick up your pen, defame, or you do that which you ought not to do that could constitute tortious liabilities, you are liable. And applies also to those with whom you relate as an insolvency practitioner engaged in insolvency work. I hope that answers the question. Let me, though I'm not doing much of a cross-border beyond the little I've done in Togo, Benin, and to some extent Liberia, so unlike Chief Tony who is doing Canada and Amala who is doing in The Hague and where have you. And I did hear a question, I think by Oguta, correct, who was asking if awards insolvency, when you do insolvency work, if you could enforce across borders. Amala, I think that was the question. Just like in any legal proceedings, a judgment, an award, or insolvency, when you do insolvency and you are going across borders, it does not automatically, just like in Nigeria that you are registrable now by the Companies and Allied Matters Act, there are also protocols across the world. And even in cases where there are awards, be judicial arbitral, at some point, the insolvency practitioner also come in. And like you've seen with what some Chinese and foreign companies are doing with Nigeria, because what they are doing today is not far from insolvency. In fact, I'll share my experience. I'm gradually in my practice now, I'm gradually moving away from when I have debt work. I'm gradually moving away from just filing for debt recovery.
myself in a bit of
Whether trying to get FIRS to give jobs to solve benefit. The lawyer on this side, the lawyer on the other side, and the lawyer that will be deciding. So, so the way I look at it is that generate the job first. So let the work come, then there will be the insolvency practitioner who is restructuring and not liquidation on the other side for the company. Everybody benefits. So it just generates the business. But on the policy part, I think that Mrs. Ndibio has mentioned it. Basically, on the policy side, all these taxes that are not being paid, it's actually your money. Your money that could have built another road, another flyover, a railway, and the rest, that people are living inside their pocket. So when you say counterproductive, it depends. If you are looking at it from your personal pocket, yes. But if you are looking at it from the society as a whole, get out all those monies, let everybody pay their tax, and then hopefully we can then make government accountable. Part of the reasons why people do not make government accountable is they are not the one paying the government. You know, they get money from oil and then they give you, right? But if you are the one giving, you become more interested. So we would like to take the last question, the last Slido question, and then round up with that. Can you put up the slide question, please? I know, yeah, just the Slido question, and then we are done. Yeah. Okay, so this is the question. This is the The question is, which do you think is most important to encourage cross-border insolvency practice in Nigeria? One, adopt the UNCITRAL model on cross-border insolvency. You saw that came up during the discussion. Encourage continuous training in the subject area. And three, get involved in the network of lawyers and companies with cross-border operations. Okay, so we give a few more minutes, a few more seconds rather, and then we close it. A few more seconds, and then we can close the. Only 3 people. No, 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 no. I think more of us should go in. More of us should go in and vote. Please, 17, 19. We need to get like 50 people. Vote. 22, 22, 27. 50 will be a good representation of this crowd. 30, we need to see more people. Please. 20, 35, we're almost there. We are almost there. 36, please vote, vote, vote. 42, only 8 more people and we are done. 42, 46, 46, 49, yeah, 51. You can stop now. So it didn't really change the, it really didn't change the pattern. Yeah, so the majority of people, in spite of all the challenges, everything we discussed today, still believe that if we adopted the UNCITRAL model law, we would advance the practice forward. But I just want to say that although many people, many people did not rate networking high, for me, that is perhaps still one of the most important, even from the discussion. You need to build your network. Make sure you remain with BRIPAN. Try to attend INSO conferences and try to build network with other law firms, because somebody may walk into your office and say, we have a crisis in Congo. And if you cannot give them a solution, and that solution doesn't mean you know anything other than you know a lawyer in Congo, or you belong to one network where you will consult and say, we are looking for a lawyer in Congo, you will not offer solution to the person. So everything there was important. The UNCITRAL model law is important. Having knowledge is important. Network is also important. Thank you very much.
A round of applause again for the session. While the pictures are going on, we'll be presenting the plaques to our panelists. And to do all this honor will be the president of BRIPAN, Mr. CVC Iakwazo, SAN. Please, can the immediate past president join us? Mr. Akiwumi, SAN, please. Mr. Akinute, SAN, sorry. Mr. Akinute, SAN, please join us, sir. Richard Akintude, SAN.
Meals and drinks.
Thank you very much, Chief Dr. Anthony Dibwe. We are very grateful, sir, for this session and all the speakers at this panel. So on behalf of the council and ESCO and members of BRIPAN, I will start with the presentation to Mr. Babatunde Ogala, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Sir, we really appreciate you. Thank you so much for the support. The next plaque will go to Chief Dr. Anthony Idibwe. Sorry, I will add Prof. Chief Idibwe is a visiting professor in Christopher University and a very distinguished practitioner. I had the honor to work in his firm for several years, and I'm very happy that I had that experience. So today, it's my honor and singular privilege on behalf of the council and the school of BRIPAN to present this plaque. Thank you very much, sir. So, Ugochi, sir, we are very grateful, madam, for your very enriching presentation. We look forward to seeing more of you in BRIPAN. On behalf of the council and ESCO and members of BRIPAN, I will present this to you. Thank you. And our very distinguished member and co-chair of the Special Projects Committee, Mr. Amala Umeike, who is pioneering and driving most of our institutional alliances and cooperations. I thank you for coming and for your presentation. So on behalf of the council and ESCO and members of BRIPAN, I have the honor to present this to you. Thank you very much, sir. Then, yes, the last of the plaques will go to our only platinum sponsor, Access Bank, Access Holdings, PSC, to Mr. Robert Ibo. First, also especially for the reception they accorded to the team of BRIPAN that visited them and the opportunity that they have offered for training, corporations, and other programs, and also supporting in a very extensive way this conference as a platinum donor and supporter. Mr. Tony, please extend our very warm regards to the CEO on behalf of the council and ESCO of BRIPAN. I have the honor to present this to you. Thank you. So thank you very much. And I think I will hand over to the moderators to just wrap up this session.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll be calling on the compare to continue from here while we have a quick chat with the media personnel at the backdrop outside. Thank you. Yes.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I want us to be lively here. I don't know. Are we tired? Are we tired? Of course we are not. Are we tired? Thank you so much. I just heard no over there. So we just had a very splendid section. We are so grateful to all our speakers. That was such a wonderful discussion bordering on insolvency and restructuring. Good enough, we've heard from the international perspective, right? I was happy when they did the poll. I saw that some persons have not done cross-border insolvency, but that's fine because Mr. Imowo said something here when he was doing his own presentation, when he was speaking on his own topic, right? It doesn't matter whether you've done cross-border or not. If you are doing domestic, how well are you doing it, right? How well have you found out the problems and the vices that we are facing in insolvency in Nigeria, to be able to tackle it before we go international? And it's true that, companies in Nigeria, they are very multinational companies now, they are going global, right? So cross-border insolvency is becoming a thing in Nigeria. So as much as we are trying to get it here in Nigeria, we also do well to, acclimatize with insolvency over there so that we are not taken by surprise. So thank you for listening. I don't want to bore you with so much. It's been we had like 1 hour and some minutes, listening to the speakers. So myself and my co-compare, meanwhile, let me reintroduce myself because some persons, came in when the session was going on. I am Cynthia Akeka, an associate at Stren and Bland Partners. And with me is Kelechukwu. He probably introduce himself by him. Okay.
Yes, my name remains Kelechukwu Ozoka, and I'm your lawyer and I'm your co-compare for this conference, the biggest insolvency conference in Nigeria. I don't know. Do you know about any other insolvency conference in Nigeria, please? Any other one? If there's any other one, that one would be a fake or a photocopy.
Of course.
It's only BRIPAN. Yes. Lunch is served and lunch is ready. Any moment from now, we can go and queue and take our lunch. They will tell us the order in which we are to go and the tables that would go first. So let us watch the ushers and the servers. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. So, Chief Doctor Idibe SAN had a poll here. We want to have our own poll, but this time around, it's not going to be a digital one. It's going to be more of like a physical and an engaging poll. So how many of us are insolvency practitioners?
Please, how many? Your hands?
How many?
Your hands? Your hands?
Insolvency practitioners in the house. How many are members?
How many are non-members of BRIPAN?
Okay, very few. I feel like most of us are insolvency practitioners or members of BRIPAN or people about to be inducted, but that's fine. So I have a question. Right? When I heard about insolvency, there was the simplest way that someone explained insolvency to me, and that is this. The person compared insolvency to mercy killing. We all know what mercy killing is, right? When someone is a critical condition, health condition that, the chances of the person surviving is quite minimal, right? The person can either die or survive. So you have two things to do. You either take the risk, do everything possible to save that person, or you help the person to die, to rest.
In medical parlance, it's called euthanasia.
Exactly. Okay. So now I want to ask this question, and I want honest feedback from all of you here. Do you prefer liquidation to restructuring? If you prefer liquidation, shout liquidation.
If you prefer liquidation to restructuring as an insolvency practitioner, say liquidation.
If you prefer liquidation, you prefer winding up the company, let them just go and rest, If you prefer that to restructuring, liquidation.
It's like they're on the other side.
Okay. We are getting there. Now, if you prefer restructuring, you want to attempt to see that the companies remain ongoing concerns. Say restructuring. Hey.
Wow.
Yes, yeah.
The thing is that they are all certain
I'm sorry, but just to cut down, you see those people that are winding up companies.
You understand? Let's just wind it up. Even when they are telling you, you know what, have you attempted, administration, say, let's just wind up this company. No, let us wind up this company. Everybody's saying restructuring now. I mean, okay, I agree with you. So moving forward, I mean, like my co-compare said, lunch is going to be served very soon. So we'll be walking down, in a very organized format. I believe there are ushers around that will, guide us as to how we'll go and take our food. But before that, the theme of today's conference is restructuring and insolvency in times of economic challenges. A lot of things has happened over the years. Economy is dwindling, prices of things just they rise like Gary, like Ijebu Gary they put inside water. You get my point, right? So a lot of things that are happening, people are suffering, the money has no value and all of that. So a lot of negativity and challenges. So it's always good in the midst of all this to be affirmative, right? To say some confirmative words, fortify yourself with some things that will keep you going. We know the economy is not good, but we have to keep going. And we don't just have to survive, we have to live, right? Don't just survive, we have to live, find a way to live. So on that note, maybe I forgot to add, I'm also a spoken word artist. So I wrote this very short piece. It's an affirmative word or affirmative words. And I'm very happy that I'll be doing this with my co-compare today, just to keep us going. It is titled People Like Us. So as you listen to us, may God bless you in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Thank you.
Yes. So we all know the times we are in, but in spite of the challenges and despite of everything happening around us, we are still kicking and we are still living. We all have to be very, very positive.
Okay.
So yes, Cynthia, we can start.
Right. People like us stay. For reals, we do.
We are not scared to be fertile in soils that we are not rooted.
Yes, we get rooted to the point that uplifting not becomes a war.
We stay.
We stay longer than length. We soar higher than heights, name it.
We are not scared to fall, for the ground can only kiss our back, but can't keep us.
So even when our strength withers, it rejuvenates at the sight of a new dawn.
When we get to look at ourselves and stay, we are survivors. We stay.
Thank you very much.
So lunch is served, and let us be quick with the lunch because the second session will be starting thereafter.
So ushers, please, can we help them direct how to go about getting the lunch?
Yes, I just got a quick information from the chair of the next section, and it says that the sum of 50,000 naira would be placed under the table for those who make it early for lunch. So let's follow the ushers and so it's not just getting the food, you also have to try and hasten up.
Of course, and you might win the 50,000.
Yes.
Okay, that's right. So as we start taking our lunch, I don't know, is the food ready now? They can start coming, right? Please, ushers.
Please direct the tables. I don't know, direct the tables.
In an orderly manner.
It's lunchtime here in Nigeria. Yeah. And we at the BRIPAN conference are ready to have our lunch.
And we have so much. BRIPAN, has so much for us. Choose whatever you want. Don't worry, you won't pay. Okay. Was giving his opening speech, presentation, he made mention that BRIPAN is not just for lawyers. We have accountants in the building. I think basically accountants and lawyers, right? And that made me remember something. How many of us are lawyers here? How many of us are lawyers here? Please engage now. If you're a lawyer, please wave your hand. How many of us are accountants here? Accountants in the building. Oh, there are quite many.
Ask for bankers too.
Bankers, are they not accountants? Please prove me wrong. Are they different?
There might be those who are bankers that are not accountants.
Please, I want somebody, an accountant over there. Could you please come and take the mic and tell us the difference between a banker and accountant? For me, I think I was thinking they were the same. So if they are different, you can, you can come and tell us.
Would want to learn?
Yeah, I would want to learn. I'm a lawyer. I mean, I would want to learn one or two things from your field as well.
Any accountant or banker to the rescue?
Should we point? I saw a few persons over there. Actually call someone. Should I point at someone? I should. Oh, we should allow them. No, let's just allow them. One good thing, one thing I've learned about accountants, they are very brief. They go straight to the point. Maybe because they deal a lot with mathematics, right?
Yes.
I'll give you a typical example. When Mr. President came to give his speech, did you see how long it was?
But when the committee chair for the conference, yeah.
It was very brief and straight to the point. So please give it up for accountants.
Can we clap for the accountants in the building, please? If your hands are not busy, please clap for the accountants here.
Please clap for the accountants. Thank you so much. So while we wait for someone to come to the rescue, and tell us the difference between a banker and an accountant, I want to say that when I was younger, much younger, I think when I was in junior secondary school, I've always wanted to be a chartered accountant. But then when I got to SS1, I outed drama in church and I acted as a lawyer. So I think I was so good that some person started telling me, oh, you have to study law, you are going to be good at it and all of that. That was how I now decided to study law. So that means that if I wasn't a lawyer, I would have been an accountant. I think that's a wonderful profession, actually. The wonderful one.
Yes, so I want to recognize the presence of these eminent personalities here who are council members of BRIPAN. Dr. Adebola Olusoya, a fellow of BRIPAN. Please let us clap for him if your hands are not busy. Mr. Olusegun Famumi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, my Oga, I saw you here. Then Professor Paul Anaraba, Senior Advocate of Nigeria.
Most welcome, sir.
And Adeleke Abola, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Welcome to 2024 BRIPAN Conference, the biggest insolvency conference in Nigeria.
convened 2024 International Annual Conference on Restructuring and Insolvency in Times of Challenges. The theme of this year's conference is timely and highly significant. We are all acutely aware of the economic difficulties businesses face today. In these times of uncertainty, the expertise of restructuring and insolvency professionals becomes most crucial. Effective restructuring and insolvency processes are essential to preserving business value, protecting jobs, and fostering investor confidence, especially when economic recovery is of paramount importance. As the global and national economies experience pressures from multiple fronts, legal and financial experts need to collaborate in finding sustainable solutions. This conference offers a unique opportunity for professionals in the fields of law, finance, and business recovery to engage in meaningful dialogue, share best practices, and develop strategies that can safeguard businesses in distress while also strengthening the broader economy. The NBA, as the largest professional body of lawyers in Nigeria, recognizes the important role BRIPAN plays in shaping insolvency practice in our country. We remain committed to working alongside BRIPAN to improve the legal and regulatory frameworks and insolvency. Our shared goal is to ensure that businesses facing financial difficulties have the best chance of survival, while maintaining fairness and transparency for creditors, employees, and other stakeholders. I commend BRIPAN for its foresight in organizing this conference and for bringing together such a diverse group of experts and thought leaders. It is through events like this that we can ensure the continued development of our legal and economic systems, which are so vital to Nigeria's growth and stability. I am confident that the insights and recommendations that emerge from this gathering will have a lasting impact on the practice of insolvency and business recovery in Nigeria and across African continent. I congratulate BRIPAN on this important conference and wish all participants a productive and successful conference. Thank you. And that is the message from Mazi Afam Osigwe, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, President, Nigerian Bar Association. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, MMA Sani, the chairman of Etiosa branch, for delivering the goodwill message of the president of the largest bar or the largest association of lawyers in Africa. We are in Lagos, and not just Lagos. The vicinity where we are is within the vicinity of the MBA Lagos branch. And without wasting much time, we want to be calling upon the chairman of the MBA Lagos branch, Mr. Bisi Makonjola, who is ably represented by Mrs. Uchenna Akimbade, to give us his goodwill message. Please let us clap as she climbs here to deliver the goodwill message.
No, it's okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I bring you a goodwill message from the MBA Lagos, and I stand here in representative capacity on behalf of Mr. Olabisi Makanjuola, the chairman of MBA Lagos. It is with great pleasure that I stand before you to deliver this goodwill message on your 2024 International Annual Conference. I extend my profound congratulations to the leadership and members of the Business Recovery and Insolvency Practitioners Association of Nigeria for their tireless efforts in organizing this prestigious event, which has become a cornerstone of thought leadership in the fields of insolvency practice, the fields of insolvency and restructuring practice in Nigeria and across borders. The theme for this year's conference, Restructuring and Insolvency in Times of Economic Challenges, is one that resonates deeply with the present realities faced by both private and public sectors, not just within Nigeria, but globally. Indeed, we are living in a time when businesses of all sizes, governments, and indeed individual entrepreneurs are grappling with unprecedented economic difficulties brought about by various factors, such as fluctuating global markets, inflationary pressures, disruptions in supply chains, just to mention a few. In this regard, the importance of these timely and strategic restructuring processes, as well as the efficient management of insolvency, cannot be overstated. BRIPAN's role as a leading professional body in these areas is one that deserves immense commendation. Over the years, the association has not only provided a platform for practitioners to engage guests and best practices, but also actively participated in shaping the legislative and regulatory framework that governs insolvency and restructuring in Nigeria. The Nigerian Bar Association Lagos branch recognizes and values the contributions of BRIPAN in ensuring that our business environment continues to thrive despite economic headwinds. As practitioners in the legal and business recovery fields, we are acutely aware that the way we approach insolvency and restructuring can make the difference between the survival and demise of businesses. In the face of these challenges, restructuring is not just a tool for survival, but also a means of rejuvenating companies and economies, providing the opportunity to emerge stronger and more resilient. It is therefore crucial that we as professionals and stakeholders continue to collaborate and develop frameworks that promote transparency, accountability, and efficiency in the management of distressed assets and entities. This conference provides a unique opportunity for us all to engage in meaningful discussions, to learn from the wealth of experience, knowledge that will be shared by distinguished speakers, and to forge partnerships that will help drive positive change in our respective fields. The sessions already had and ahead promise to be insightful, and I am confident that they will equip all participants with valuable tools and perspectives needed to navigate the complexities of the current economic landscape. The Nigerian Bar Association Lagos branch remains committed to working alongside BRIPAN and other stakeholders in advancing the practice of business recovery, restructuring, and insolvency. We strongly believe that through collaboration and continuous professional development, we can contribute to a more stable and sustainable economic environment for businesses and individuals alike. As we embark on this two-day journey of learning and networking, I encourage all participants to take full advantage of the opportunities presented at this conference. Let us all actively contribute to today's challenges, but also prepare for the future. Once again, on behalf of the Nigerian Bar Association, confidence that the knowledge gained and the partnerships formed here will have far-reaching impacts on the practice of restructuring and insolvency in Nigeria and beyond. May this conference mark yet another milestone in the efforts to strengthen Nigeria's economic resilience and ensure that businesses, no matter how challenged, for recovery and revitalization. Thank you and congratulations once again to BRIPAN on a successful organization of these notable events. We look forward to a continued collaboration and fruitful exchange of ideas during this conference and in the years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Uchenna Kimbade, for that beautiful goodwill message read on behalf of the chairman of the Nigerian Bar Association, Lagos branch, Mr. BC.
To the industry-specific perspective session of the 2024 International BRIPAN Conference. We have a lineup of industry best today to speak to us, and in no specific order, I will be introducing the panelists of today's session.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I just need to make sure that everybody is with us. This is called the graveside session. After lunch, everybody's about dozy. But I'd like to just ensure that one, we are with us, and to assure you that a panel that would enlighten everybody. So please pay attention and make notes, because at the end of the day, this session is the one, I think, that affects us the most as individuals and as corporate bodies. It has a lot to do with our everyday life. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to bring this panel to you and welcome you to this pivotal panel, restructuring and insolvency in times of economic challenges. There is no doubt that we are in times of economic challenges, and therefore the work of BRIPAN and the work of insolvency practitioners is, I think, needed more than ever. So I plead with you to pay attention. You never know what tip you may get from this. We're dealing with various sectors: aviation, manufacturing, construction, real estate, as well as banking sector. In the past few days, I note that there's been some shake in the banking sector. The interest rates have gone up. That has affected a number of my clients, I'm sure some of yours too. Mr. Akitu and I were discussing the cost of travel, even to Abuja. It's not a place you go without planning properly to do everything you want to do in Abuja. Before you could go and run back same day. These days, when I go to Abuja, I make sure that I pack everything into it and do all I have to do, because it's not what it used to be. The cost has increased because, again, the visual fuel has increased. All sorts of things have happened. So what we're going to discuss today is what happens. How do we address these issues? How do we advise our clients in these various spheres? We're even lucky to have somebody who's an owner of a business, and he can tell us his own experience. We will discuss the various economic constraints and regulatory hurdles and how we can foster a more resilient economy. So as we embark on this dialogue, I encourage each of you to share your insights, please, without pulling punches, your experiences and best practices. Okay. Best practices. The essence really is to help everybody navigate the situation, either in their capacity as business people or as advisors. I look forward to a vibrant discussion and appreciate your participation here and yours as well. Each of the participants will have 12 minutes. I'm more generous than Tony was. If you can do it in less, we'll appreciate it. You get the slides anyway, but we just want to ensure that you put the points across
And any one of you who wants to speak at the podium, please feel free to do so. So we'll go first from my far right, Mr. Okoye, who's been introduced already. You have the floor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was made to understand that I'm actually the only non-lawyer or accountant or banking person here. But I just want to believe that it's not infectious, that by the time I finish this, I will go insolvent. Okay, the topic I'm asked to talk about, insolvency and restructuring in the manufacturing sector. Of course, I'm a core insider, especially in Nigeria. Next slide. Yes, I am a narrow business and compared to this company, General Motors, they went bankrupt in 2009, June 1 exactly. Next slide. Texaco had the same problem. They are based in US. You know the companies and their sizes. They were bankrupt, I think, in 1987, even before Texaco. Go next slide. So let me now go to my introduction. Go ahead. Solvency and restructuring. Next slide. So insolvency is all about inability to pay your debt, and converting a debt is part of restructuring. Next slide. So as a manufacturer is struggling to survive, if lucky to have a listening bank, of course, will be the way to go, and you will survive finally. If unlucky to have a listening bank, the nail is right on your head. Next slide. Restructuring could be positive or negative. Manufacturer could restructure to increase output. It's known as operational restructuring. Of course, you can also restructure your organization, either the organizational chart or even down to the floor within the factory. And then you also have financial restructuring, where you have to talk to your bank. And thus, it's very important you have a very good relationship with your banks. Next slide. So, BRIPAN, this is the first time I'm getting to know about BRIPAN. I didn't know anything about BRIPAN until I was invited for this lecture. The interest of BRIPAN is basically, if you will agree with me, on the last aspect of our introduction. A manufacturing outfit is nurtured like a child. You know as well as I do. If you do well and not your child, well, you grow very well. If you're unfortunate and you play with your child, you are in soup. Next slide. As should be expected, insolvency comes before restructuring, and many factors could lead to either of the two. Next slide. Next slide, please. So factors leading to insolvency in the manufacturing sector. Next slide. Mismanagement. You all know about this. If you don't manage well, you are done for. If you manage well, you're there. Economic instability. You might not be the cause of this. It could be crazy policies raised by the government. You all know that. Or currency exchange being very bad. You don't have much control over this. Unplanned rapid expansion, you have control on this. If you want to expand your business, you have to sit down and plan and get involved experts to enable you to plan for your expansion. If you just think that expansion is coming up, is getting up one day and deciding I'm going to build more plants, you get into soup before you know it. Unstable supply chain. Of course, for a manufacturer to survive, you must have somebody selling materials to you. And of course, You must be selling to people. So if you have an unstable supply chain, and suddenly a material you're using suddenly disappears in the market, of course you're in soup, and there is no story about that. Unhealthy competition, yes, this usually occurs within countries like Nigeria, where people might know, if they know you're coming and they've been in the business for a long time, they might decide to drop their prices and lose for a short while. And within that period, if you don't take time, you are in soup. Then inadequate infrastructure. I don't think I need to say anything about that in this country. You manufacture, you don't even have a good route to bring out your materials. You pay a hell of money to be able to sell, bring out what you've manufactured to sell. Or you're manufacturing, you have chains of policemen guiding you and your factory. That's an extra money that is supposed to actually be spent by the government. Or you're manufacturing, you don't have electricity. You know the cost of diesel now. And that is one of the worst aspects of it. Sorry. Next slide, okay. You've taken me out. Yes. Get back. Next slide. Next slide. Down, up, back. Go back. Go back. Or you can't go back. Go back again. Okay, I've explained all this. Keep going, yeah? Front now, front now. Okay, restructuring as a solution to insolvency. I've given you all the explanations. So we're now getting to how restructuring as a solution to this insolvency. So the creditor has a role to play when it comes to restructuring in a manufacturing outfit. However, before the creditor comes, a strategic study of the manufacturing organization has to be taken and necessary adjustments made. If you have a manufacturing outfit and suddenly you are into insolvency, first and foremost, you study your system, study your management setup, study what is happening on ground before you start inviting creditors. This is very important for a manufacturer. Next slide. A good knowledge of the technological setup. If you are in a pharmaceutical business, you must have a good knowledge of the setup of pharmaceutical business, starting from registrations, regulatory processes involved, to the product you are producing, and then selling, and of course, the regulatory aspects of all the selling, because it's not the same thing with other industries. So, but this is applicable to anything you are deciding to undertake. A study of the organizational chart down to the manufacturing floor, yes. Your management staff, your key staff, down to the cleaner in the factory. You must be able to go through all these things to be able to catch up with whatever you're doing. A look at the market demand and supply. Of course, if you are selling into the market, you must understand the market you're selling into. Understand your competitors, understand how they are competing. In fact, for a business like pharmaceuticals, most times it's even discovered that the competitors, more than 50% of some of the competitors do that through production of substandard products. And if you know that, of course, you don't have to follow them. Is to ensure you're making the right product and remain calmly beside the market. Then urgent setting up of a credit department, if not available, if it's not existing already, and then how do they operate? A credit department is one of the most important departments in a manufacturing outfit, because most cases, if you're a manufacturer, you're selling on credit. And For you to know what is happening, you must understand your credit department, have the right person there, and then know when they are agreeing to sell and when they are not agreeing to sell. It must be a department you don't joke with. Next slide, please. Next slide. So engaging professionals. Now I'm coming down to having people like you all sitting here. Professionals in insolvency and restructuring are essential to success of manufacturing companies. If you have a manufacturing company and you're sensing insolvency as a problem coming forward, the earlier you engage a professional that will assist you, the better for you. Because there will be a time you will be bringing a professional who will only be advising you how to shut down your company and save your life. So you must get the professional involved once you sense there is something happening so that he can lead you towards restructuring. Getting them involved on time, very essential, usually does the magic. They can serve as a bridge between you and your employer and employees in the internal restructuring, because they are not coming to structure just in terms of finance. Though I've taken it that most of you here come, especially in Nigeria, we talk with the bank. But
one more minute, please.
Some professionals will come and look deeply into your management status, into how you set up the running of the company, and be able to tell you, carve out this place, remove this area, and that might give you lead you to a success. Next slide, please. So I'll give a few recommendations. I hope I still have time.
No, you don't.
Have a well-monitored credit control process. Engage insolvency and restructuring experts on time to assist in improving cash flow and profit of the organization. Disposal of unused assets. Sell them off and use the money to run your company. Avoid stockpiling. Don't buy raw materials and stock. Of course, if you manufacture, the earlier you sell, the better for you. Avoid overtrading. I mean, that is an aspect that kills most industries. You're doing this, you want to take up on the other type of business. Before you know it, you're out of the line. Carry out risk assessments of new customers and suppliers. Develop good relationship with your creditors. Next slide, please. Conclusion, next slide. The Nigerian manufacturing sector contributes less than 10%. I want you to have this information so that you be able to ride on with the Nigerian manufacturer. Because people think they are kings. Instead, they are the people carrying the trouble of this country. They contribute less than 10% to the GDP of this country, and they employ about 13% of Nigerians. There are about 2,500 companies recognized as manufacturing companies in Nigeria. Out of that 2,500, this year alone, 244 has gone underground just because of maybe insolvency, problems within the line. What is the cause? Insolvency and final liquidation due to largely to lack of essential infrastructures.
Thank you.
Slide.
Thank you very much. You owe us a few packets of pharmaceutical products. Taking 2 minutes of our time. But we're very grateful. That is not a lawyer or an accountant. Nobody would have guessed if you tell us. And that's the benefit of experience. The thing that caught my fancy there, or caught my attention there, was that 204 manufacturing industries have collapsed this year. And I don't have a single job, not one. I think we should work as BRIPAN to ensure that next year we don't have any collapses. So please tell your people to approach BRIPAN so we can advise and give them some mouth-to-mouth resuscitation so they don't die. Thank you very much for that. We'll move quickly to the noble order of ladies first now. And take Olashade Olusoya. She will discuss the banking sector, strategies for successful bank capitalization, benefits and challenges ahead. And I warn you that time, you'll be paying money, cash, not product. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's recapitalization season once again. And for those who have been in the business for at least 20 years, we know what that means. You just hear recapitalization everywhere, and the banks are at it. In the last 20 years, we've probably had 2 to 3 programs of recapitalization, depending on how you count it. In 2004, we had an industry-wide recapitalization program whereby the regulatory capital was moved from 2 billion to 25 billion. In 2010, as part of a sector reform, we had the recapitalization of the distressed banks. And this year, starting from March, we have our latest iteration of banking recapitalization. This iteration affects 30 banks in all, commercial banks, merchant banks, and non-interest banks. And the capitalization is based on their different license requirements. It has been suggested that if all the banks affected came into the market to raise funds, we'll be looking at something, an estimate of about 4 trillion. 4 trillion from a Nigerian equity capital market. But this capitalization is very different from the ones we have done previously. The first thing is that it's only paid up share capital and premium that is going to be used in calculation. So for all those who were part of the 2004 it's no longer shareholder funds. Bonuses are not applicable. Retained earnings are not applicable. Additional tier 1 capital is not applicable. For the accountants and auditors in the room, revaluation surpluses are also not applicable. It is clear that CBN wants a fresh injection of funds by the 31st of March, 2026. What are the recapitalization options? So the CBN, as usual, has given us some guidance. You have the equity raised through rights issues, private placements and public offers, the mergers and acquisitions, and then the change of license. Of course, you wouldn't have had this in the previous recapitalizations because we didn't have different license types. I think what has come through that are some additional options. So where you have a closely held companies, examples would be those that are subsidiaries of foreign banks. The expectation is that their parent companies should inject additional capital. And for those within a financial holding structure, it appears they have some options. The financial holding company itself can go to the market and raise those funds and invest it in the bank. I think we have already seen that in the market. We've seen GTB, we've seen Access. We could also have the situation where a financial holding company divest from subsidiaries and use those proceeds to invest. I know that FBN Holdings is divesting from FBN Merchant Bank. Also, you could have a financial holding company that has more than one of the affected banks within their corporate structure. Exit, divest from one of them so that the pressure of raising capital is reduced. I don't think for the professionals in the room, any of these options are new. But I guess the question is, so given what we have to raise, what really are the strategies? I think the first thing would be to have a well-defined strategy. And I think it's probably easy just to say it like that. But after seeing recapitalizations in the banking industry, I think it's better to qualify it as bespoke tailor-made for that banking entity, and not a situation where the banks follow the head. So because the banks have done ABC and may have been successful, I should follow the same route. I think it's important for the banks to leverage existing shareholders through rights issues. When significant shareholders take up their rights, they're able to maintain their existing stake. And it also serves as a signal to other shareholders and new investors. Given the amount of capital that is to be raised, it's essential to engage HNIs that have discretionary funds that basically would not do anything else with it. I think engaging the HNIs would shorten some of the processes of recapitalization and also reduce the amount of shareholders that you bring on board. Another approach would be to engage the qualified institutional investors. I believe the SEC rules stipulate who those are, but they would include your pension funds, your private equity funds, your fund managers, your staff schemes, your trustees, large cash that they hold. What I would call a compelling equity story. I had mentioned a bespoke capital raise. I think the equity stories for all the banks cannot be the same. All investors are looking for return. And even if you promise a return, what they'll be looking to see is how are you going to achieve that return? In the economic phase that we find ourselves, it's not for people to make promises. They have to be able to show how they would provide those returns. An equity story is not complete without the financials. The financials have to be well documented in order to show key insights and information that the investors are able to make informed decisions. A credible transaction process. So all the banks have submitted their implementation plan. But for any investor, they would like to see a process whereby each of the banks are able to hit the regulatory cap even before the timeline. So we have enumerated a lot of processes that the banks can adopt. If you go through the different, the ones who have had EGMs, you would notice that a number of them are doing more than one of the options. So it is really important that in planning out your transaction process, that you build in a lot of slack for the things that will go wrong. Although the deadline is in 2026, the gun at the starting point has been shot. The banks are racing. One bank makes it, then it becomes pressure on all the others. And then you then start looking at your transaction table. I recall, I believe it was in 2004, 2 months to the end of the deadline. So many banks wanted to merge. And the CBN had to review those applications. And you can imagine reviewing applications for merging banks in a 2-month period. Speed to market, the ability by which the banks are able to put themselves together and also get into the market is a good indicator of whether it will be successful. As you would have all seen, all those with international licenses have already gone to the market. It gives an indication as to how, I mean, they have the largest amount to make, which is the 500 billion. It shows that they are focused on succeeding. And indeed, they have to succeed for the benefit of all of us and our country. Pricing. This, again, is a specialized aspect, and the issuing houses are good at this, but the criteria will be putting a price to the shares that is attractive to the investors, but also having an amount that you can actually raise the capital. I think one of the things we noticed was this bank, although it's one of the high dividend payers, it came to the market at an amount that was heavily discounted, much more heavily discounted than one expected. Now, the last two items, which is partner selection, stakeholder alignment, and the integration planning, are for the banks that want to take part in M&As. I cannot re-emphasize the importance of choosing the right partner. Cultural fit, strategic alignment, and the potential for value creation. If all these do not happen, you just be merging for the sake of it. I think we still have remnants of some of those decisions that were taken 20 years ago. Pre-post planning. This has to be considered whilst you are considering your partner selection. So you merge in order to take advantage of synergies. While you are doing your partner selection, you have to actually ensure that those synergies are going to be available. You'll be able to implement on it when you merge. And that has to be done whilst you are looking at the merger process. Are there challenges? Certainly there will be. I think, I mean, it's not here, but even just the amount that has to be raised in the present situation we find ourselves is a challenge. There is limited capital. There's competition for that capital among all the banks. There's competition for that capital for other sectors. And the macro effects we're feeling in the country is not limited to Nigeria. It's all parts of the world. So where you would say that you could rely on money coming in from other places, we'll wait to see how that pans out. Cost of capital, because all the banks are in competition with each other. It's an investor time. So investors can actually sort of demand for how much they would like to be separated from the capital that they would be providing. Again, the banks have to look at this and look at the banking terrain. Are they able to deliver returns on what cost of capital? Timeline. So 2 years, we've already done how many months? 2026 looks far away, but is actually near. As I said, once the first bank meets the deadline, the pressure starts. A number of these processes that we mentioned, they're all regulatory driven, so there are timelines for it. Merger process, just the transaction process itself, not even selecting the partner, just the process itself, the formal process, is at most 6 months. So anybody who is thinking of a merger, you should start thinking about it now. You should start thinking about it now.
That's me.
That's you. Okay. To start thinking about it now. If you know Nigerian businesses, the owners are not fond of diluting their stake. So that continues to be an issue. Foreign exchange risk, part of it is we expect foreign capital to come in. They will be looking for returns in dollars, not in naira. And they'll also be looking to be able to repatriate their dividends without delay, which I'm not sure we're able to guarantee right now. Executive risk and synergy realization continues to be challenges in implementing any of the options. But are there benefits? Certainly there are benefits. The benefits will be a stronger, more resilient, healthier banking system in which can enhance their intermediation role. They're able to absorb losses better. There's a boost in depositor and investor confidence, and also boost the economic activity and growth, contribute to the economic activity and growth. I think the target for that is $1 trillion by 2030. $1 trillion by 2030. So if the banks are going to make that contribution, there's a lot of work to be done. So as I close, I remind myself that I am at an insolvency conference. And with every recapitalization, there might be unintended consequences. So this regulators, the central bank, is very good at providing the recapitalization options for guidance. In previous times, the private sector professionals have been innovative and have proffered suggestions with options that could be adopted for the unintended consequences. In 2004, it was the use of purchase and assumptions, the whole banking transaction. In 2010, it was the bridge banks and also AMCON. In 2026, what is this going to be? I look forward to joining BRIPAN professionals to proffer solutions to the regulators to ensure that we have a safer, more resilient banking sector for the protection of depositors' funds. Thank you.
Actually, just because it was such a good presentation, we'll let you off. You won't have to pay any money. But honestly, it was very enlightening. I'm sure Alice to me, and I'm sure to else. And one thing is clear. We're talking insolvency, and we're talking restructuring of the economy and of various sectors within the economy. At the heart of all of that, clearly, is the banking sector. And those of us, without giving away my age, those who have lived through a few failed bank syndrome in Nigeria will understand the knock-on effect that I had. So, I mean, I think it's very good to see that at least the CBN is thinking ahead, giving some timelines, giving proper guidelines, and giving the opportunity for some of us here to advise as that timeline eats away in the process of this recapitalization of the banks. Once again, we'd like to thank Bolashade for a succinct analysis of what is, to some extent what was, and hopefully what will be. Thank you very much. I'll go next to the strategies for resolving insolvencies in construction and real estate industry. Mr. Bidemi Daniel Olumide will take that on and probably take my microphone. Unless he's going to, maybe he should just go. Oh, okay. He said it's too tall so that he doesn't want to overshadow anybody, so he'll sit down and take his presentation. But I'll still have my timer with me, and I'll borrow the mic too, so I can time you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. So I have my presentation up. You please permit me to sit down. I strided across the aisle earlier, and I called experience. Great. All right. So to provide context, I here to speak about the real estate and the construction industry, which as of today is said to be contributing about 11% of our GDP. Dr. Okoye earlier spoke on the manufacturing industry, which is said to contribute about 10% of the GDP. And I think the last speaker will be speaking about the aviation sector or the logistics sector, which also contributes some minimal percentages of our GDP. So we get to know who the real champion amongst the panelists really is, and that is the person who controls the finances, right? That controls almost the three of us together. So when the chairman spoke earlier about but it's a woman's world. We understand what it means. Thank you again, Mr. Spolasha for giving context. That context is very important to much of what we're going to be doing going forward. Largely, much of the issues around illiquidity that we have, right, streams slightly from that sector. The more we have a resilient sector there, that's the financial services sector, the more life becomes very easy for every one of us. Much of what we'll speak about the strategies for resolving insolvency, right, cuts across almost all of the three of us. And so at the risk of rehashing much of our realities about the causes of our insolvency and all of that, I will save our time, right, by perhaps looking at the presentation from just two very major points. I encourage us all, please, to read the slides, to look at the slides. My team did a very detailed work in terms of some research and some statistics that you'll find very useful for yourself as practitioners. So I'll separate my conversation in two. That's what I call the pre-insolvency strategies and perhaps the insolvency strategies themselves. As practitioners, we often find out that we come late to the party. We come late, perhaps after the whole mess has been done, and we just call to resolve it or to kill them. So, as a practitioner or as someone in the construction and the real estate industry, and perhaps I backtrack a bit here, and to give context that I'm actually having a double whammy here. And that double whammy is that I'm speaking about two different industries, very related, but very distinct. One is a subset of the other. The real estate industry naturally is a subset of the construction industry. That point is very important for us to note. So, but then there are certain common underlinings which I will speak to. So what are those pre-insolvency strategies to, ensuring the continuous survival, right, in these two very industries? The very first you see there is what more often than times than not practitioners call soft, a very softish. And I will delay it till to the last point. So it's called relationships management. I'll put it to the fifth and talk about the very first four. Of course, it's a construction real estate industry, highly projectized. Much of everything you do there, right, is as regulated by contracts you sign with your clients. Prior to you entering insolvency, most important is that you must understand your contract. Oftentimes than not, what we deal with is that we really find what we call unworkable contracts. A time like we currently have it with escalating inflation, interest rates that are never stable for more than 3 months in a row, will be a very wrong time for anyone to negotiate what you call perhaps a fixed price contract. Fixed price contracts are typical contracts where the price of whatever you have to deliver, whether in construction or in real estate, is tied in your contract, even though you have variations. Oftentimes, we find that variations does not even come to save you in the day because of some of the very tightly worded clauses as it relates to remuneration, as it relates to your payment. So you really want to make your contract as flexible as possible in terms of pricing. A lot of project managers don't really subscribe to this, but practice sometimes shows you that what you call JIT, that's a just-in-time approach in terms of pricing, to just be what saves you at the end of the day from taking on a contract, either in the construction or the real estate industry, that you cannot deliver on. So, contracts management. Projects management speaks largely to you understanding the dynamics, of what you have to deliver. well, as we always say, there are no two projects that are alike. The nuances will always change and vary. So deft project management skills, especially in understanding the critical risks, what project managers will call the critical parts, and all of that of your project that you need to deliver, very important. Closely related to that, of course, is financial management. I often say that in managing a construction and a real estate company, perhaps your Excel sheet in terms of the finances of your organization is a live sheet on your system, right? Where the numbers keep trickling in and you continue to see whether you have an overage or, you're dealing with a potential liquidity issue. So debt management, financial management, very important, right? Of course, in dealing with a lot of the issues that come in this space. Now, because project management helps you in identifying core risks, of course, the next pre-insolvency strategy there is how you insulate yourself from such risks. And of course, the right word for that is insurance. And now insurance, of course, is in this context is broadly defined. So anything you have to do to mitigate risks, right, we put under the category of insurance. So when you are, you're having your payment guarantees from your clients, when you're having the escrow accounts, where the monies that are needed, for the delivery of the contract has to be put in place, those are naturally part of those insurance conversations. And I'll explain this a bit to you. Right, so of course, some of us understand the concept of the time value of money. So oftentimes and not, you have to deliver the project, there are timelines that are set for it. Sometimes the delivery might come right from the client. And then when issues comes to shove, the question is whether you are not programmed it in your project. And I said the very first one, which I took to the last, is what I call a deft relationships management. Again, these are all insolvency strategies. Oftentimes and not, a lot of the things you can get right and resolve right with a very good relationship that is managed across key stakeholders, right, in your company's life, right, often saves the day than even the letters really of the contract. And you say, oh, is this coming from a lawyer? Yes, it's coming from a lawyer. Oftentimes and not, what we're faced to deal with as lawyers, right, not be right discovering wordings of a contract, but largely it's relationships gone bad. And then we are asked to come in at the end of the day, right, to interpret words that when they were signed under a different context than the context in which we're called relationships management. I say this to the last because when I go into the insolvency strategies themselves, the next slide, you'll see it still comes first. Next slide, please. You see that same creditor relationship management still comes first at the other extreme there. Because oftentimes I know, again, I will never tire of reiterating it. Very good creditor relationship management gives you a lot of headache. So a lot of the other strategies here, Dr. Okoye has spoken about it. Number two, there's business reorganization. All right, if you have to combine roles in your organization, please combine roles. You have to, and of course, all of these are largely cost measures. The only sense of business reorganization is to achieve efficiency and effectiveness in what you are called to do. So if your organization is unnecessarily over-bloated, right, it's a bit top-heavy and all of that, of course, naturally, you are in dire straits here. You don't have the luxury, right, of doing any other thing than reorganizing yourself. The third there is, of course, reduce recurrent expenses, right, through elimination of non-essential expense heads. Because there are certain expenses that are non-essential to the survival of your organization. Get them out of the way. Get lean, right? So when you get to the doctor and the doctor says, keep fit, right? Stay trim. That also happens to organizations. Organizations sometimes are a bit overbloated and they need to just get as lean as possible. The fourth there is for you to improve your liquidity through, right, taking out a lot of your fixed assets. And when we say taking out a lot of fixed assets, it could either be a sale, right? You could sell some of those fixed assets if they are non-essential, right? But if they're essential, you could actually sell and lease them back. This has proved to happen and to solve a lot of issues. I am not going to pay you any fine, sir. So I think I will leave it at the seventh one, which is the same thing that everyone has re-echoed. This is a forte of business rescue professionals, right, to help in this space, right? And if there's any issue, of course, we should all see the need to engage BRIPAN certified professionals. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much. That's the that your clients deliver their properties on time. Thank you very much. It's something that real estate has always been the heart of wealth creation, and therefore everybody seems to strive to have some real estate as part of their portfolio. Unfortunately, as we have seen over the years, as the country grows, as states and cities grow, a lot of real estate, construction firms and real estate companies tend to have a little bit of the heat of changing policy, changing costs, the volatility of the cost of development in our industry. And so for us as insolvency practitioners, I think it's a real sphere that we need to look at in terms of advising ahead of time and advising as things move along in that sphere. So thank you very much indeed for giving us an insight into that. We have one more presentation, and it's Mr. Batunde Ogunbamila, who is flying us to God knows where, to safety, I hope, but structuring and insolvency in the aviation sector. There has been a number of insolvencies over the years, all the way I can remember, I think it's Chachangi and all those ones we used to have in those days. We have some recent ones, and because I know that some of us here are involved, I won't mention names, but I'm sure Mr. Ogunbamila will help. You have the floor.
Good afternoon, Leonard CK present. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll probably fly everybody to safety, so be calm. My topic today is flying to safety, restructuring and insolvency in the aviation sector. Aviation sector is, may I have the slide? Aviation sector is a crucial sector. It is crucial because it is critical to both global and national economy. And it provides the connectivity, it fosters trade, and it's actually here, it contributes significantly to tourism and business growth. However, because of all this, it's also vulnerable to economic downturn. And what could be the cause? We have fuel fluctuation prices, and we have regulatory shift because it is an highly regulated sector. And then its asset is very mobile, so it crosses across a loss of jurisdiction. What I will do today, because it is very important to keep to time, and I do not want time up. So I will just concentrate, run us through what is the uniqueness of this industry? Why is it very important for us as business, rescue, and insolvency practitioner to be very careful while dealing with this industry? One thing I'll first say is that there is no specific aviation law in relation to insolvency in this regard, although NCCA has provisions to take care of some of what CTC convention and its aircraft protocol has done. What I will do is run us through and center on one major asset of the industry, which is possession of aircraft. Can I have this slide, please? Okay. I've talked about major stakeholders in the industry. The uniqueness of aviation industry is makes it a bit complex. One, you have the financial structure, which is very, very different because of the capital-intensive nature of having aircraft. So you have lots of laws regulating this. You have the operating lease. You have different financial structures because airline owner may in his fleet not be the owner of any of the aircraft in his fleet. So whosoever is giving out, leasing the aircraft, has this at the back of his mind: if this thing goes under, how do I recover my own aircraft? And that is what I'll be zeroing on repossession of aircraft in terms of insolvency. But let me quickly go through. Let's go. I will not bother us with what insolvency is, the cash flow, the balance sheet insolvency. I will only go through the complexity of. Can I have this slide, please? The complex financing arrangement. That's what I've talked about. I've talked about then asset management. You know, aircraft, very mobile, could be in different jurisdictions at different times. A company, an airline may go under today, may become insolvent, and aircraft may be in another country. So how do you manage that? And then you have regulatory compliance in all of this because it is an highly regulated industry, basically for safety reasons. And then you have its impact on the passengers. You also have that impact on the employees. So when an airline goes under, you understand that you have passengers who have booked before now, and they may be somewhere in Bahamas enjoying their holidays. The plane to bring them back is somewhere else because somebody wants to repossess, and then there is need to protect the passengers, so to say. And then we also talk about the employee. I am not going into all this. I will just quickly run through it. And then cash flow issue. Airlines require cash to operate. Anything that disrupts its financial underpinning will eventually may escalate to big financial crisis that may make it go under. Now, tools to manage insolvency, we all know. We have the receivership, where we can have a receiver. You may have a receiver manager. You may also, now, CAMA has done us one big favor to bring us in line with best international practices where you now have provision for administration, which is equivalent to business rescue all over the world. Like you have the Chapter 11 in US, and you have the Administration Act in United Kingdom. Now, we have restructuring. Yes, the restructuring is after business has gone. So you're looking at a business is in financial crisis, and restructuring could be internal, restructuring could be external. Even a creditor may decide to ensure that a company is restructured in order to gain advantage, to ensure that people are paid and the business is rescued. I will also just quickly go over this. Can you go up, please? Okay. Still up. Are the options. Complexities in aviation restructuring. We talk about high fixed costs. Airlines have significant fixed costs, including aircraft leases, maintenance, and airport fees. Reducing these costs without compromising operations is challenging. So that possible way of them getting bust. Regulatory environment, highly regulated. They also have labor relations. Then we have debt and financing. Airlines typically have complex financing arrangements, which we've talked about, and then there is market volatility. I will now come to aircraft repossession. Aircraft repossession is a very complex and a bit tricky. There are about 4 stages. Let us say by an agreement, an airline has defaulted payment of its debt, and you want to recover, you want to repossess the aircraft. The very first stage is, okay, you issue your default notice, you issue the default notice. Can I have this slide? And then the grounding. Default and grounding notice. Default is simply, oh, you are notifying that you've defaulted. Please ground this aircraft at so place for me to repossess. And for me to repossess, and then you can also have arrest and seizure of the aircraft. You can then they will now have the problem of the registration of that aircraft. You all remember the Chicago Convention on Nationality of Aircraft, so that for aircraft to move from another country to another, it has to be registered, and then for subsequent sale or leasing out to another people. Then we talk about exportation. It is not alone to talk about the registration. You also have to ensure that you are able to export it from one country to another. Then there is access to documentation. Access to documentation is very important and very key in repossession of aircraft. Why is this very important? Because you have of an aircraft. If you do not have it, it becomes very difficult to take it to another jurisdiction for it to continue its operation. In doing all this, there's a very big challenge because of the peculiarities and difficulties of local laws and rules. Then you now have the Cape Town Convention on International Interest in Mobile Units of 2001. That has really come to help in assisting to make it seamless in repossessing aircraft. The Chief Judge of Nigeria, Honorable Chief Justice B. Soho, the CJ of Federal High Court, so to say, I'm sorry, Honorable Chief Justice Soho signed the practice direction in relation to implementation of the Cape Town Convention in Nigeria for ease of repossession of aircraft. to do that, for the convention, two things very, very important. The country must be a signatory to the convention, and two, you must have registered your document, that is your document internationally in the registry. It gives you three main reliefs, which is the self-help, which is non-judicial remedy. It also gives you other pending final determination, which you can obtain from court. And then there is what we call IDERA, which is irrevocable. I'm sorry, which is the registration and export for an aircraft through use of irrevocable registration export request authorization. In all of this, let me just summarize it. It helps in you repossess the aircraft, one, and two, one must also be very careful as a business, as insolvency, restructuring and insolvency practitioner in handling aviation matter. It is not like what we do when you have a receiver or a receiver manager of a company who just lock up the company because he wants to just get his money. No. And we've talked about the liability that may come from it. I'm a bit constrained now, but I will be open to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Ugbamila, for landing us safely. And there was no mishap along the way. Well, what I'll ask the president of BRIPAN to give us 5 extra minutes, since we are the last session of the day, to take some questions. Just a few questions. You will get the benefit of the slides, and in some cases, even more elaborate slides. So you'll be able to read up on relevant issues and probably reach out to the presenters individually if you think you can. I have the nod of the president. Thank you very much. So if there are any questions, I think there's one over there. While we're getting the microphone, I'd like to once again say a big thank you to the presenters. The various aspects of it were very intricate, as you can see. People generally would expect that insolvency is insolvency, and therefore, one size fits all. We have seen that it's not quite true, and I think they've explained the various facets of it in the respective industries. So we'll take that question. I saw a hand up there, and there's another one here. So there are two here. Do you anyone wants to ask a question?
Okay. Okay. My name is Yakubu Yusuf, FCN. I want to talk about a presentation of a lady that talked about bank recapitalization. We have witnessed two before now, and we are in another session. I was in the bank in 2004 when the recapitalization was done, and I was there in 2010 when another one was done. And we are witnessing another one. They go in different dimensions. But I would say that if there was a privilege of looking at the side of insolvency practitioners and consultants were properly consulted, I think the negative impact of 2010 recapitalization would have been lesser. I may not go into more detail here, but whenever I have the opportunity, I think I can do that. But the presentation of the lady was very apt, was very detailed and professional. And the ongoing capitalization to mobilize money, they might give the privilege to the banks to do better business, and the capital increases. And it will bring the aspect of involving insolvency practitioners, because I see that before CAMA 2020, there were a lot of important areas that insolvency ideas were bypassed, and it cost the country a lot. I think the country will look at that and try to carry along appropriate professionals when they are doing recapitalization or reconstruction, whenever it concerns banks or other financial institutions for that matter.
And then the caliber of the capital, human capital that they have. In the case where the aircraft is flying across the border, and it happens that the insolvency judgment is taken in another country, the plane is somewhere else. How will the people, the country in which the airplane is registered, how would they be able to recover the money that they have expended on that airline? A cross-border issue. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I think...
Okay, sorry. Sorry, before you answer, Mr. Babatunde Ogungbamila, in fact, my question is directed to you. I clearly understand the volatile nature of the aviation industry and the need to exercise caution while grounding an airplane. But I want to understand, as an insolvency practitioner, how do I manage liability that comes with the aftermath of grounding an aircraft? You made mention about passengers that have paid for the flight and hoping that they will be brought back from wherever they are, like from vacation, and they've paid, and this airplane has been grounded. As an insolvency practitioner, how do we manage the challenges? Because I understand the volatile nature of the industry, the aviation sector.
Okay. I will take both questions together because they present the same challenge. The first one is on aircraft being in another jurisdiction as at the time an airline is declared insolvent. And the second one is how do we deal with the passengers? For the first question, I think this is where law should come in to protect, one, passengers, and two, we talk about cross-border. It has also brought up a cross-border issue. Now, the first thing is we should all understand that as an insolvency practitioner, we cannot take what does not belong to the debtor to satisfy the debt. From my explanation, the first thing is that the airline
is probably not the owner of the aircraft. So even if it were within the jurisdiction where where the airline was declared bankrupt, whosoever is recovering for the creditor must be careful not to deal with the aircraft in a manner inconsistent with the ownership. And again, to answer your question, this is where in most jurisdictions, insolvency in aviation industry is not handled as insolvency in other sectors, because the first thing people talk about is protection of the passenger. So whosoever is actually receiving, administering, or managing that insolvency procedure must bear in mind, or the authority must also bear in mind, how that company can be run in a way where passengers will now be able to come back safely to their destination. So it's more of the law taking care of the passengers, and it is not more of a cross-border issue now. It's more of looking at like an insolvency practitioner to be very careful not to go after what does not belong to the debtor. And that's why we talk about repossession here. I do not know if that is very clear.
Any other questions?
Yes,
comments,
sir.
Observations?
Is it working? Okay. I thank you very much, sir. I have a question.
Where you from?
Yeah, I have a question. I have two questions, but one has been partially answered, but I will still need to reiterate on the one that has been answered. The one that I was answered is regarding the fact that in the aviation industry, in many of the instances, the aircraft are usually on maybe like operating lease. So if an insolvency practitioner is to take on any of the airlines and you want to ground the aircraft, it is most likely that you are grounding a lease, that an aircraft that's under a lease and may not be, and that means it's not owned by the airline. So that's number one. That has been partially answered though, but also what I want to find out is, many in the aviation industry, tickets are booked in advance. And now that you want to grant an aircraft, how do you manage the expectation of the customers or liability from the customer? If you are granting an aircraft that has been booked for future activity, how do you manage that? Those are my questions. Thank you.
I think I actually answered this question the first time, but I'll try to provide an answer once again. The point is, you have an agreement with an airline. Now, that agreement is now in jeopardy because that airline can no longer perform that which you contracted with it. Somebody has come in to take over the operation of the airline or to recover whatever remains of the airline in terms of assets and so on. I said most countries in the world, particularly in United Kingdom, what happens is you cannot just file an insolvency petition against an airline and it will just be granted just like that. There must be a provision for the passengers. So there must be in place a provision for how the passengers will be brought back to their destinations. So, and in this case, let me also re-emphasize as insolvency practitioner, we need to be very careful when we are dealing with evasion matter. Evasion matter is not like a regular insolvency matter where most people will just go lock up a company because it cannot pay its loan, and at the end of the day, they don't care about the employee, they don't care about even its tax, they don't care about its obligations to any other person, and a business that is still viable in code, maybe it is not liquid. Somebody who wants to recover 2 billion will come and ground a company, just close it up, and it will be station policemen there. And that is what most practitioners, what they do in Nigeria, or get policemen to seal up a company. I just want my money, pay and let us go. I think that will not work in the aviation industry. If one does that, one may incur big liability even as a receiver manager.
Thank you. I just want to point out that those receiver managers they're talking about, they are not one of us here. They're the ones who need to come and join BRIPAN. And truly, because I've also had the opportunity to have worked in an insolvency that had to do with that sector. In fact, in more than one occasion, I was also involved in the liquidation of Nigeria Airways, much to my chagrin. But the truth is, from my perspective, it's no different from any other insolvency, to the extent that where you have a cross-border insolvency, you must consider the law of the land as well as the international laws, and in particular the law of where the other jurisdictions. The president and I worked on a particular insolvency that was cross-border, and indeed it had about, I think it was 5 or 6 jurisdictions, and you must consider those. Second is that whatever we do in an insolvency must take cognizance of the law. So if, and you said something at the beginning, you cannot take an asset that belongs to a third party to satisfy a debt that that third party is not involved in. It's as simple as that. Whether it be a manufacturing industry, whether it be real estate, whether it be a bank, the same principle applies. I find that, when we're in a particular sector, because we're focused on that sector, there's no comparison really, unless we have something like this. But the truth of the matter is that the law of insolvency and the practice of it, there's a common ground, and then there's specialty. The other thing I'd like to say is, it seems to me the questions are being asked. Everybody assumes that the insolvency, the only answer is grounding on the airline. As I said, I'm involved in one, even at the moment. And that airline has been flying for years, and I've been involved for a few years. It's been flying. We've gotten our money from the income it makes. And to a certain extent, we've been able to recover quite a bit over time. I mean, lately it's been a bit more difficult, it's almost stopped, practically stopped. But for years, nobody knew that it was in insolvency, and yet it was flying, and it was meeting all its obligations in terms of the servicing of the aircrafts, even got new leases. But the important thing was, for us, is to recover the money. It's not, we don't want to become an airline owner overnight. So I think it's the same thing in any sector that you're running an insolvency in. We are business restructuring practitioners, essentially. So, and that's why we changed the name from we must always look, whatever the industry, first of all, is it possible to turn this around? Can we get it back on its feet in whatever shape, rather than kill it? And I said, whatever the industry, that should be the first focus. And once we can do that, then I think we will have achieved our jobs as insolvency practitioners. Before we round up, oh, there's one more question.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm Akiode Akinkunle, and your last comments have almost like answering my questions already, part of it, and I share the same view with you, with most of what you have said. I would rather that we begin to see ourselves as midwives, as insolvency practitioners, rather than undertakers to come and bury an organization finally because it's going through problem. The reason I stood up is to ask each of our presenters, if time still available, the man from the aviation, the woman that talked about the banking, and I would have loved to face the manufacturing man more, but he's not more on his seat. There are native knowledge to this act. The fact that order to go and liquidate a business does not mean you just bounce into their organization and you think it's going to be free ride for you. Some will look at you with that eye of, if it's your mother that born you, come and do this thing, and you think that you will run it from beginning to the end without meeting with some stiff opposition. Now I'm talking quantitative and qualitative now. Can you share some native knowledge with us that you have faced? I would have loved to hear from you again, too, sir, because you say you've been in it for long. So you will have faced them, both side comments and the physical one, even if you don't receive text message in your house, concerning a particular liquidation you are on. I hope my question is understood. Thank you very much.
Hello. Yeah, my name is Emmanuel Bonaya. I think I want to separate two things. It seems to me in Nigeria, we don't have, we just only have class liquidating process. In other words, no creditor will simply go to the debtor because of my debt and start the process of liquidation. But the opposite is in the UK, where a company or an individual, and that's why we have all these so many liquidations in the UK. One person can get up and go to a company and say, you are owing me, I'm liquidating your company. I have faced a case just like that a few months ago, where an electrician went into one of the pubs, and in the course of trying to renovate the pub, the electrician incurred so much money in the UK. And what he then did, instead of going into arrangement with the pub owner to pay them whatever they have incurred, he thought he was continuously going to continue and reaping money from the pub owner. So all of a sudden, he went to court. And in fact, I spoke with the pub owner, and I said it's not going to work because there are other arrangements in place to pay that debt. But going there will not work. But I'm just looking at what happened in UK to what happened in Nigeria. In Nigeria, I think it wouldn't have been just one individual. It's going to be a class, if I understand what is happening, it's going to be a class issue of creditors liquidation. So please, can I share some clarification on this? Because I think that's one of the things that we're discussing now. Somebody going into some other countries to go and held up to an aircraft. It's because they have seen the law outside Nigeria before they went to that place. I'm setting an example. And they go to another country to withhold the aircraft. Could that happen in Nigeria?
Thank you very much.
All right, let me take the very first question. I think I'll give the second question to Mr. Chairman. I think a question borders on the, and permit me to paraphrase it. That question borders on the element of control, right, as an insolvency practitioner. And I mean, we had the benefit of administering what we call the first court ordered administration in Nigeria, which took effect in 2021. I was administrator, and it was pretty simple. I mean, and I like to use this playbook, which is just switch off the tap. Switching off the tap means taking the element of control of finance. Once you take control of finance, every other thing kind of finds its place. You really don't want to go in physically or to physically handle or control a business. I mean, it's not something that I would ever advise. Once you have the very right alignments with the bankers, practically almost all transactions will be done with the banks, and you can take control of the, particularly of the bank assets, the cash flow, as much as possible. Every other thing kind of settles itself. Of course, the employees, even at the level of management, also knows who controls the assets now, who controls the cash, and everybody naturally will put so. Typically, I mean, for me, I think that would be a most practical example or most practical advice for practitioners. I mean, just follow the trail of the money.
So insolvency in the banking sector by law is done by NDIC. And NDIC has the processes by which it does it. So my last comment was that what we have seen is where we have the significant recapitalization exercises and there's a fallout. Practitioners are able to engage NDIC, the CBN, or banks to propose any new structures that can be utilized. I give examples. And as I thought while I was putting together the paper, I tried to see what has been done recently in other jurisdictions. So I can see in America last year, about 13 banks came up and set up a rescue package for a bank called First Republic, because First Republic had showed some distress. First Republic has similar depositors like the Silicon Valley Bank, if you recall, that defaulted. And the 13 banks realize that if First Republic goes down, it's going to be impact on them. And I think that is really, I know that our session chair said that insolvency is the same, but I think there are sector nuances. Banking is all about confidence. And if it comes out into the open that there's an issue with the bank, I'm sure all of us will resort to under our pillows. So in terms of business rescue, I'm aware that the CBN has a lot of instruments it uses in order to rescue the banks. I think what I will then say is that do the banks reach out to practitioners like those at BRIPAN to actually come and try and help them resolve those issues before it gets to a distress situation? I'm not sure. I have been privileged to see a lot of the reports from CBN on a number of banks, and the CBN would have flagged a number of these issues for a long time, and either it is not attended to properly or nothing is done. So I think that creates an opportunity for us. We have 30 banks on the market. It creates an opportunity for us to approach them and sell our services, introduce them to new structures, new thinking as how to go about saving their business process.
Just for clarification, when I said insolvency is insolvency around, I was speaking from the aspect of the practitioner. You follow the same principles. Of course, the reason why we are even having this session from different sectors is because there are sector nuances. But you still, whether it's aviation or banking or insurance or whatever, your construction, you don't take a third party's property to satisfy your debt. First point is to see if there's a rescue opportunity before you go into receivership. Yes, in Nigeria, you can go straight to the courts and file a petition for winding up as an individual. It doesn't have to be a group of people. You can do it individually. In fact, there's an issue in courts now that we're engaged in. Somebody filed a petition for winding up, and of course, that is you advertise, and other people can then join that winding up and file their papers. And then the person who filed originally says, I want to withdraw. And I said, you can't withdraw, and if you withdraw, it doesn't stop the liquidation, because a liquidation, a winding up of company, is not a personal action. So in Nigeria, the first thing is that, yes, you can have, just like the electrician, you can file a winding up petition as long as you follow the law. You are being owed money, you have the amount, you've asked for it, time has passed, requisite time has passed, for them to repay and they haven't repaid, you can file the petition. It doesn't mean you will get the order, but you can file the petition. And the first question regarding experiences, I don't know how much time you have. I've been through such a lot in insolvency. I've had a gun put to my head. I've been in a situation where we went to take over a company. And you know, when you go to take over a company, after you get the main police from the head office, you go to the nearest police station just so that you are supported. And I got to the police station. The company is dead now, as I mentioned, it's 5 Star Industries. And it's in the Stolo. So I went to the Mushi police station, which is the nearest one. And the commissioner there, or the DPO there, kept us waiting. And, he's going to support us. But some people have gone out, so we should wait for the police guys with the car to come. So we stayed there for hours. Eventually, he said, oh, there's only one person. Do you have a car? Put him in your car and go there with him. First I noticed that the guy doesn't have a gun. So I said, well, maybe they know the place very well. When we got there, we found out that the first thing we saw was that the police vehicle that was there was donated by 5 Star Industries. And the policemen I saw there were the people I saw in the police station earlier. So I approached them. I said, look, I've come from the DPO, and this man, he had disappeared. And the guy said, you're an armed robber. I said, I will shoot you if you don't leave here. So anyway, long story short, we had to now sort of go around, pull strings. I don't want to mention the name of the commissioner of police then. We had to go and meet him in a guest house somewhere. And then he explained to him, because I got somebody who knew him, and he wrote us a note to that DPO. And he was going to write the note. He started with a particular color of pen. But I've been warned that if he says that, they tell him, Oga, you have to change the color. Because apparently that color of pen, if he writes any instruction, it can be ignored. So he said, oh, you know us. And then he changed it then to a green pen. It was that note I took back to the DPO. And the DPO followed me to go and take over that company. So yes, you have all sorts. But I always say, just be wise. And it is not, you're not a policeman. So don't get into fights. I've been in situations where you have the workers, come up in arms. And you just speak with them and explain to them that you're on their side. And eventually they become your security. So there are many ways. Every insolvency is different. But I advise, don't take undue risks to your lives. Because at the end of the day, it is a job. It is an assignment. If you don't take proper caution and follow the law, then you're looking for trouble. But other than that, I think that, it's a very interesting area of law. We're getting older, so all those gone and all that, I'll run away and leave it for somebody else to do. But generally, I think we're doing well. Thank you very much once again. I'd just like to round up by saying that, we have had, I think, a very interesting session. I think that the questions are brought out a bit more. But as I said earlier, we're going to have the slides sent to you, and be it as Dr. Lubajo alluded to, your interest is in aviation, in banking, in real estate, construction, in manufacturing, or indeed in any other sphere, BRIPAN is the place for you. Thank you very much. But before we go, I'll just allow everybody to say one word.
As insolvency practitioner, I think we should first look at business restructuring before pulling the plug.
I think practitioners should run the market, make the market. Practitioners should not wait for the market to come to the regulators.
Thank you much, everyone. Let's have a fantastic conference.
Thank you.
A very big thank you to our distinguished chair, panelists, and our dear listeners for today. We have come to the end of this enriching session, and it's picture time. So I would welcome the president of the association, the CPC chair, and BRIPAN executive members for the picture session. Thank you.
On behalf of Well, the chairman has been quite impressive. For me, it's been a very fruitful day. And on behalf of the association, I must express our appreciation. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. On behalf of the council and ESCO members and the entire members of BRIPAN, I wish to say a big thank you. And this is just a token of appreciation for your presentation. Thank you. Yeah. Bidemi Olumide is a very known figure. He's privileged to have, acted in a professional capacity in the first few administrations, after the commencement and the community force of the Insolvency Regulations 2022. And for me, I think it's a privilege today to also thank him for his presentation and to wish him well. So on behalf of the association, this is just a token of our appreciation. Thank you very much. He's also a gold sponsor for this conference. Thank you very much. So thank you very much, Mrs. Folashode Olusanya. We are very grateful to you, at least for the sacrifice to come. And we have been enriched by your expertise and knowledge in this area. We are grateful to you. So on behalf of the association, I want to say a big thank you and to just leave this as a token of our appreciation.
Our speakers for the... Is it working? Thank you so much for staying to this point. I believe we've had a swell time. We've had one or two to learn from our speakers, industry experts, when it comes to insolvency and restructuring in Nigeria and even beyond, because most of them are even cross-border insolvency practitioners. So I believe you are going to be taking one or two home. So we are almost coming to the end of today's conference, but we are not going to close without recognizing, everybody here is very special. So if you are here today, please, a wonderful round of applause for yourself, please. Please clap for yourself.
Please, let's clap for ourselves.
Yeah, you deserve that. So we're going to be recognizing some persons, some firms, some companies who, contributed in one way or the other in ensuring that this conference, is a success. So, okay, yes.
Yes. Yeah, so we would want to especially recognize our platinum sponsors. Access Bank PLC, please, as we're recognizing them, we'll be expecting a round of applause for them. Please.
A round of applause for Access
Bank. Without our sponsors, we won't be doing this today. We won't be having this conference in 2024.
Okay, we are... So we have our gold sponsors. For our gold sponsors, we have two of them in this category. So we have Christine Pedabo, and we have AO2 Law. Please, a wonderful round of applause for them, please. It's not easy.
So for the silver sponsors, we have Babington, Ashay, and Co. Chartered Accountants. Please, can we clap for them? The law firm of Alex, CIO.
And we have Babalakin and Co. A round of applause, please. We also have Babatunde Ogala and Co. A round of applause, please. Thank you.
Yes, for the supporters category, we have Punuka's attorney and solicitors, Ayodele Akintude and Co.
We are not clapping.
If our sponsors decide not to sponsor, we won't be here again. No. Let's clap so that next year they will do more.
So we have Akinwumi and Busari. We also have Chikwem Chambers. A round of applause, please.
We have Shola Oyetai and Co., accountants and business advisors. We have Koya and Kuti.
We also have Benga Beyond Baku and Co. And we have Ijenwere and Co. A wonderful round of applause for them, please.
There is also Kusamotu and Kusamotu.
Then we have individuals who also supported. We have Mrs. Marianaya Essen, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Thank you so much, ma'am.
We also say thank you to Mr. Olusegun Fabumi SAN and also the 7-Up Bottling Company. Thank you very much
We are most grateful.
for supporting and sponsoring this year's conference. So can we clap for ourselves once more?
Okay, we'll be coming back, right, to give the announcement. But before then, we'll have to recognize once again the chairman of the CPC, that's the committee, the planning committee for this conference. So we'll be calling on Mr. Albert Folorunsho to come and give the closing remarks. But that's not going to be the end of it because we have some announcements to make. And of course, we have to sing the national anthem as well. Thank you so much for staying till this time.
All right, thank you so very much, everyone, for being very patient with us, and then, of course, for being participative all through the program. The questions were well asked, and I'm also sure that they were well dealt with. So I want to thank you once again for coming. We have recognized all our sponsors and those who have made donations. And we are so very grateful for the support again. And so for tomorrow, we'll be having the grand finale, and of course, it will start promptly by 8:30 for tea break, or tea. When you come in, you just come and take your tea, and then settle down so that the first session will start immediately before 10 o'clock. And the first session has to do with development of insolvency practice and law. You know, most of them are going to be very practical and related to the practice itself. And then the second section will be effective management of an insolvency process. And of course, the first one will start with the strategy for fostering judicial expertise in insolvency and restructuring. That will be delivered by Honorable Justice Amobeda. And of course, the second one has to do with the strategy for efficient valuation in restructuring and insolvency. I hope the accountants will be on ground. Please come with your calculator. Even if you are not an accountant, please come with your calculator. I will be taking that paper tomorrow morning, by the grace of God. Then, of course, we'll look at the insolvency bill and the insolvency facilitation bill, the implication for restructuring and insolvency. We'll have other speakers. Then the second one is effective management of an insolvency process, like I said, and then we'll go into some prioritization of multiple applications. We'll have our justices handling some of those papers. So that is what we have tomorrow, and then we will try and round up earlier than today, definitely tomorrow, so that we can come back in the evening for the gala night. Okay, so you can even skip your lunch if you don't mind, because the gala night, there will be plenty of gala to eat. And it has been tagged the Hollywood Glam. I'm sure the ladies can describe this better for me. And of course, we expect us to be here in our colors, as already highlighted in the program. I believe we have all downloaded the program from the QR code on our tables, so that we don't carry up and down all these papers. We just printed a few so that as we are transiting from paperless, some people are still not used to, some people cannot even download from the QR code. So please, let's start getting used to it. So that is what we have tomorrow. Red carpet will start. After that, we'll have remarks from the chairman, and we'll have somebody also giving us one of our past presidents, Dr. Abiodun Lion, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, will be giving us a pep talk tomorrow. And then we have over 200 inductees that are going to be admitted into membership. Can we clap for them? Over 200, over 200. And we are hoping that after that, definitely it will just be better for BRIPAN. And like you said, we have been having courtesy calls all over the place, and that is to let the industry also be familiar with the role of practitioners instead of struggling on how to recover their debts. Thank you so very much. So that I don't waste too much time, let's have the national anthem, please. Thank you. This is holding my closet.
Please, can we start for the national anthem, please? The new anthem, please.
See BRIPAN. We are having a very brief meeting just now. The front, members of the legislative committee, BRIPAN, which is going to be very brief. Just to be frank.